The Smart Fortwo has much tougher city car competition to face in second generation guise, but it still has its place for customers who only need 2 seats and want minuscule running costs in a tiny, fashionable package. The Smart story is a tale of 2 halves. Originally, the brand was conceived as a collaboration between watchmakers Swatch and Mercedes-Benz, and it brought us one of the most curious and cleverest cars of the last century, when what's now known as the Smart Fortwo debuted in 1998. Now, skeptics doubted that urban customers would buy such a tiny, slow and odd-looking little car, when for the same money they could have a more conventional supermini. They were wrong, and the first generation model shifted over 770,000 units. Sadly for Smart, those same buyers were largely less interested when the brand tried to bring them larger and faster models. The 4.4 family hatchback, the Roadster, the stillborn 4 SUV, nor indeed were many other buyers. And by the time the Mark realised its mistake, the brand had hemorrhaged billions of euros. As a result, the workforce was halved, all other model lines were axed, and a crack team from Mercedes was brought in to focus on the model, the car that people really wanted, the car that Smart does best. The result is this second generation Smart Fortwo, a car so much improved that even the Americans now want it. Let's take it to town, see how it works. Criticising the Smart for feeling a little out of its depth in motorway traffic is a bit like moaning about a Hummer feeling clumsier around town. It's not really what it was designed for. Now, this Smart, like its predecessor, feels most at home in an urban environment where it really feels very compact and nimble. You can snaffle parking spaces that other motorists wouldn't even look at. How many other urban runabouts, for example, can you park face onto the curb? Now, all that's helped by an astonishingly impressive 8.7 metre turning circle. That's just 3.5 turns lock to lock. Yet this car must also be able to take on longer town-to-town journeys, and it was here that the first generation model let itself down, courtesy of a wheezy 0.7 litre engine, a hateful jerky semi-automatic gearbox, a bumpy ride and rather vague steering. Now, the engine issue wasn't too difficult to solve. Smart already had a relationship with Mitsubishi, which yielded an altogether more suitable 1 litre 3-cylinder engine. Now, this second generation model also gets a much improved Getrag 5-speed gearbox. It's still a semi-automatic affair when most people would probably prefer a no-frills manual box, but shift times are down to half of what they were, although it can still feel a bit jerky till you get used to it. Once you do though, the whole thing works pretty well, and the extra torque of the 1 litre engine means that there's not so much cog swapping going on anyway. You can opt for these paddles behind the wheel for those times when you come over all sporty going around the one-way system, though that's not something that's likely to often happen to owners of the entry-level and rather feeble 61 brake horsepower version. That really is for town transport only. If exclusively urban use is really what you're after though, you're probably better off going for the 45 brake horsepower CDI diesel version, billed as the world's most economical production car. British buyers understandably prefer to limit their interest to the 71 brake horsepower and turbocharged 84 brake horsepower models, and a few even go as far as trying the 98 brake horsepower Brabus version. Sporty in look, but resolutely smart in nature. There have been improvements to the ride. It's still pretty crashy on low-speed bumps, but it's much better at higher speeds. And that, combined with the much sharper steering, should mean that you shouldn't feel too bad about these days attempting a longer journey in a Smart Fortwo. Top speed on most models is limited to 90 miles an hour, but the pokier versions get there surprisingly quickly. As ever, there's a body style choice of either this hardtop coupe or the cheeky cabriolet model with its electrically retracting fabric roof and removable roof bars. Now, both have grown a bit to all of 2,695 millimetres long, thanks to the need for extra cabin and luggage space and the demands of pedestrian crash legislation. Still, this remains the smallest production car you can buy. By comparison, a conventional city car, like say a Peugeot 107, is 3,410mm long, though it does offer the advantage of a rear pair of seats. Somewhat unusually, the Smart's passenger seat is mounted 15cm further back from that of the driver's seat, allowing for extra shoulder room, something that's further helped by the 4.3cm increase in width, allowing for 3cm more elbow room than you got in the first generation model. Now, luggage space is still tiny, of course, but the increase from 150 to 220 litres over the Mark I model means that you get more space in here than you would do in, say, a Mini without the seats folded. And you can stack up to 340 litres if you go right up to the roof. The two-piece tailgate with its opening window is really wide, and you can sit on the bottom part of it here. It's strong enough for you to sit on, say, during car boot sales. On the road, when you're being bullied by larger road users, it's tempting to worry a bit about crashworthiness. Perhaps that's why Smart chose to emphasise this car's safety cell with these dark painted structural elements. Now, they make up the Smart's distinctive two-tone styling look. It's also more stable these days thanks to a wider track and standard ESP stability control. And you get ABS with brake assist and twin front airbags as standard. I'd also go for the optional side airbags, which could be a lifesaver. Most Smart models are priced in the £7,000 to £9,500 bracket, and that's pricing that puts this car up at around £1,500 less than its closest competitor, that's Toyota's IQ, a car that's only slightly larger and has the advantage of rear seats. Mind you, if you want rear seats, there are any number of cheaper city cars you could consider. A Peugeot 107 costs from around £7,000, while Fiat's funkier 500 will cost you about the same as a plusher Smart. The cabriolet version has much less competition and retails at about £2,000 more model for model than the equivalent coupe version. The complete Fortwo range starts with the Econo Basic 61 brake horsepower version, but it really is worth finding £300 or so more for the 71 brake horsepower model, or even better, the turbocharged 84 brake horsepower version. Now, that car starts from around £9,000. Lower order Smart petrol models all come as standard with the MHD micro hybrid drive system, cutting fuel costs with its start-stop technology. Now, as to whether you'd really buy a plusher Smart when for the same money you could have a larger supermini, well, that really depends on what you want. After all, the charms of the cabriolet version that over a third of Smart owners choose are pretty unique. And since BMW proved with their Mini that small car buyers will happily pay between £13,000 and £20,000 for a little runabout, as long as it's fashionable enough, it's even possible to see why someone might consider a blinged up 98 brake horsepower Brabus version. The introduction of MHD, that's micro hybrid drive, in more recent second generation Smart Fortwo models has made a big difference to urban fuel consumption. The system's start-stop function disables the engine at traffic lights, pedestrian crossings or in urban queues, leading to savings of up to 30% in urban fuel consumption. Now, as a result, the 71 brake horsepower version that I'm driving here can record up to 57.6 miles to the gallon on the urban cycle and up to 65.7 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle, while putting out just 103 grams per kilometre of CO2. You can't beat a diesel, of course, when it comes to low running costs, and the CDI model returns 83.1 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 80.7 miles to the gallon on the urban cycle. That's astonishing, while putting out just 88 grams per kilometre of CO2. Clip-on, clip-off plastic panels help with affordable insurance. The groups range between 2 and 3, and residual values are amongst the best in class. The Smart Fortwo has never been more relevant, and it remains as fashionable as ever for the urbanites who appreciate its quirky charms. Yes, there are more sensible small car choices you could make for the money, but let's be honest, if you want to get around town sensibly, you shouldn't be buying a car in the first place. You should be getting the bus. Assuming you agree that life should be fun as well as cost effective, and assuming that you really don't need more than 2 seats and minimal luggage space, this Smart still has what it takes to put a smile on your face. And in today's often dismal world, that makes it a car worth having around.